Hi, everybody. A little bit of a disruption there with my Zoom. It was a little bit of a hiccup. How is everybody today? Welcome to Mindfulness with Mark Bianchi here on the Enlightened World Network and Enlightened Living channels. I am happy to say that today's topic is right back to financial matters and life decisions that tie into financial matters. I just want to make sure that everything is okay here. Phone is off and all that. Very good. So we're all today's the topic of today's show. Welcome to the show. Today's show is making that move. And what I'm primarily talking about is when we decide to change our residence. And we know that there's a lot of reasons that people can decide all of a sudden a certain location, a certain geographical location doesn't work. And many times those reasons are related to money. That's not to say that money is the only driving force for those decisions. However, because there are quality of life issues, our outer environment means a lot to us. It doesn't mean that if you are an unhappy person, that a new location in and of itself is going to make you happy and be the end all and be all for you to now have a happy life. However, it does play an important role because as we've talked about on our show and as a financial coach, that's one of the things that I always try to get out there and put out there is that all of these decisions that we plan for or don't adequately plan for, they all have a domino effect of affecting and impacting our future security and our future stability. And those are two words that I very frequently talk about, security and stability, because so many of these decisions that we make, if we don't think them through and we don't do them for the right reasons, they can backfire and end up, not thinking it through. For instance, you may make a rash decision to move to a new area of the country, and you might think, oh, okay, my job is moving me there, and let's see, I'm going to make $15,000 a year more. They're actually giving me a bump up to move me, okay, to another location in the country. However, if you didn't stop and do all of the analysis of whether that move really financially works for you, it can end up backfiring in your face. And you can end up finding out 2, 3, 4 years later, oh, wow, I'm getting further and further into a hole here because, for instance, the cost of living is much, much, much more expensive in your new location than your old location was. And so now you have a cost of living where, let's say, your property taxes are much higher. Let's say that your home insurance is much higher. Your car insurance might be much higher. Your mortgage interest could be much higher. Who knows? All of these things, the fact that you're getting a higher salary to make this move, while it's very nice, it's not the whole picture. And without considering all of those other aspects to your new location, for instance, how is different income taxed? Is there a state tax? Did you not have a state tax in your old state? Like currently where I live in Florida, there's no state tax. Huge perk. And one of the big reasons why many retirees or non-retirees move here. It's one of the reasons. And all of those things must be taken into account. I'm going to go through the list of why people move, but I just wanted to give a general sense that when we make a move, it's one of the biggest planning and financial planning, along with family planning, not that type of family planning, but the family planning where you're doing what's best for you and your family type of planning. I'll be very clear about that. That is not, it is not a decision to be made in a vacuum. And so, so I just wanted to say that a lot goes into why we should decide to live a certain place. It's not just about, oh, I like the weather there. Although weather can contribute to your happiness because it is a real condition called seasonal affective disorder, where people who live in climates that are cloudy and gray for 10 months out of the year can get depressed. And that's very I can completely relate to that, because I don't even like it when it rains for a solid week. And I start to get I understand the reasons why people will move based on weather, but then again, weather can't be the only deciding factor. It figures in, but there are places that will check off more than one box, let's put it that way. So never move to a place just because it checks off one box. Never move, my opinion, okay? Never move for a potential romantic partner, and that's the only reason you're moving. Because you're uprooting a lot. You're uprooting a lot of the certainty in your life for a lot of unknown. And some of that unknown could be better, but some of it could be worse. You never know. You might be moving, you might have a great doctor, just throwing this out there. You might have a great doctor where you currently live. And where you are moving to, you're not going to have, you don't have as, maybe your insurance network isn't as expansive as where you currently live. So your choices would be much more limited. So, none of these decisions should be made in a vacuum or where we're only looking at one single aspect of the reason to move. So what I wanted to get into then is, what are those actual reasons that people move? So as you could well imagine, the most common reason is moving for a job. And like I stated, it is nice to move for a job. However, financially consider, maybe you're getting a 15% bump up in your salary in your new location, okay? So if you are married, for instance, one of the things to consider is, does your wife currently work, or your husband, whatever? Does partner, live-in partner, whatever, do they currently work where you currently live? How will that move affect their job and your household income? Will they be able to replace their current job for the same amount of money that they're bringing into the relationship or the partnership now? So that's one thing to consider. The other very important things to consider are, what are your expenses going to be like in the new location? Okay, so great that your company is going to pay you 15 or 20 more $1,000 a year to live in your new location. However, will it be costing you $20,000 or $25,000 more to live in that new location, because groceries are more, utilities are more, healthcare is more. So no decision should be made for just one reason, is what I'm trying to say. Is have a bucket list, or have a bucket list is nice. I wasn't going to go there, but I will. A bucket list is a good thing to say, like, this is my list of what I want. And just like with anything where you want everything in a list, be open to the fact that you are not going to get 100% of everything you want in life, and that works for anything in life. You're not going to get 100% of what you want, but you're probably going to end up compromising. And if you end up with 70 or 80% of what you want in an area or a relationship, but since we're talking about moving, we'll keep it on that level. If you get 70 or 80% of what you want, you're doing okay. So don't make the move for just the one reason. Hey, my job wants me to, they're promoting me. I'm going to make $20,000 a year more there. Okay, so what will your future promotional opportunities look like? Have you discussed that with your current employer? So you're moving me there for this position. Is it very, very going to be very hard for me to move up there if I move there? Because, and this is an honest, frank discussion to have with your employer, because I think there's a feeling out there with a lot of employees, especially those that are career motivated and want to move up and want to make more money, which most people do. Hey, I would never, ever, ever refuse my employer. They want me to move, I'm there, but it shouldn't be that easy. Nobody should determine, no person, no employer should determine 100% the future path of your life. And you have the right to look at every aspect of how that move is going to affect you. And you have the right to discuss that with your employer, exactly what your concerns are. So, okay, so you're moving me to this new location. That's wonderful. What do my chances of, no, so starting off, after you've done your analysis of the cost of living in that place, because you've either talked to friends or you've Googled it or something like that, or people that you know who are in that area, often a good thing to do. When you've written down, like, this is what my utilities average cost is there. This is what my property insurance is going to cost there. Or if you're renting, this is what my rent is going to cost there versus what my rent costs here. So when you weigh it out, and you must weigh it out, is that move, just because it makes your boss and your company happy, is that move the right thing for you and your life? And that's very, very important to consider, because no entity should force you to make a move that's going to put you into more debt because you're moving there, or make you have to make huge adjustments to your lifestyle. Now, by that same token, it could happen where you find out, when you weigh the expenses in your current location and you weigh out the expenses in your new location, it could end up that, hey, they are both paying me more and my expenses are going to be lower. So that situation would be a win-win. However, just be wary and be cognizant that unless you figure out all the differences between the current location and the move, you could be getting into a situation where you're going to make $20,000 more, but it's going to cost you $35,000 more to live there. So weigh all that out is all that I'm saying. So that's our number one reason that people move, and that is for a job. You also move for that better cost of living. And that's very, very common, because some places, the property insurance is extremely high. Like here in Hurricane, Alley, where I live in Florida, property insurance is made high because of the hurricanes. But if you're moving to a state where you don't have much in the line of natural disasters, kind of like my old state, Pennsylvania, we don't have much in the line of natural disasters, and therefore our property insurance and our, we don't have a windstorm insurance, but our property insurance rates are probably, I haven't done the actual comparison, but I'm going to guess that they are many, many, many percentages lower than what you pay in a tornado alley state or a hurricane alley state, especially if you're right in that path or you're right on a coast. There's a price for that coastal living. Don't kid yourself. And a lot of times those more desirable areas, they come with a huge cost of living increase. They really do. So evaluate all of that. Another very important and not to be overlooked reason that people move is moving for schools and the schooling, and how that new area is going to affect your children's education and their future. And that's extremely important. That's right up there with all of the other reasons. So always evaluate that. Evaluate like the district you would be in, compare the different districts, what they have to offer, what they don't offer, and look at all of that. Also families can change. Well, they do change. Children grow up. Adult parents get older, need more help from you. Sometimes you can't afford. I'm currently in this situation now where I'm considering options because of this. You don't have the space to necessarily bring an adult parent into your current house, but you could get more house for a lot less money in another area where you could now have that adult parent live with you, thereby saving them a ton of money. Because let's face it, elder care is very expensive in this country. It really is. There's no way around that. Nobody can deny that. And so healthcare reasons, along with family and downsizing, they're all common reasons why people move, and they're very good, valid reasons to move. They're actually, in my opinion, when you're looking for a move for reasons that make you a lot more in the black versus in the red, overall as a family entity, that makes more sense for me to move than for only a job, where everything else is bad about the move, but the job is giving you a promotion, giving you a raise, and wants you to relocate. So I am saying that your expenses and the way you manage the money that comes in, like I've always said, is more relevant to your future financial security and stability than making the big bucks. Because oftentimes what happens to make the big bucks is the big bucks go right out the door also, especially if you're living in a very desirable area. A lot of people want to live in metro areas. A lot of people want to live in desirable, almost touristy areas. However, living in close proximity to those metro centers also comes with a heavy price tag. And don't kid yourself. Me personally, I'd rather live rurally without a lot of neighbors and save the money on the house, and also garner the peace of mind that comes with looking at greenery every day versus cars every day. So to me, it's a win-win to live away from the metro center. I never have enjoyed that. But if it is your thing, just go into it without blinders and realizing that living in those metro areas is more expensive. Now, if you're making so much more money with your job, okay, that even the increased expenses and the increased expense rates of your new location are so minimal because you're making so much more money in your new location, then by all means, if this is a place you want to live and the math works out, by all means, then go for that. You know, that would be something that I would say go for it. But just don't ever go into it with blinders on, not looking at the whole picture. Do a whole, even if you have to put it like in a spreadsheet or write it down on a piece of paper, look at your wish list, your bucket list of what you want in a new location. Look at your income in your current location versus your income in your new location, and account for any changes to both of those. Then look at your expenses in your current location and compare that with your expenses in your new location. And just do the math. The old saying, do the math, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, do formulas if you like doing that kind of stuff. I kind of do, but I also don't mind writing it all out manually because I just feel like I understand it better when I do that versus putting it into an Excel or something like that. So just don't go into it with blinders on and look at all of the factors that affect your move is what I'm saying. Another reason, a sad reason that people move is someone dies. And maybe they want to be close to the family, you know, something like that. And that person needs your help, or, you know, family reasons. Those are all very good reasons to move. And oftentimes, you know, those are more important than, oh, I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to have $10 less a month to, you know, spend. I mean, yeah, go be with your family, do the right thing by all means. I would say also look at the equity that you've gained in your house. A lot of times you've gained a lot of equity in your current location because it's a very desirable place to live. And you can get a whole lot more house for your money in your new location. Sorry, let's see what that was. You can get a whole lot more house for your money in your new location. So evaluate, you know, your equity and your outstanding debt and things like that, current location versus new location. You know, it can't only be, the move can't only be about one thing. It should be about all of these things and all of them working for you. You know, what is your current situation, life situation, marriage situation? Do you see it all remaining exactly the same? Is the family is going to change? The downsizing happens very often. That's one big, huge reason people move, is families get larger, or families that need that house get smaller, I should say, like the empty nest syndrome. Kids go off to college, kids get married, kids don't stay little kids forever. And now all of a sudden, you know, you had this 4-bedroom house or this 6-bedroom house, and you realize now it's just you and your husband, or you and your wife, or you and your partner. And now you have all these empty rooms. And you're paying to keep this house, you're cleaning all those rooms, or maybe you're paying somebody to keep them all clean for you, you know, and, you know, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of expense. And, you know, so there is a trend to both go, and they're actually about equal from what I read. There's as many people who try to downsize as there are people who upsize. When the family is in the growing phase, there's as many people out there trying to upsize as there are people realizing they're now empty nesters and that they would prefer to downsize. The benefits of downsizing are huge. They really are. It's less responsibility. The more clutter we have, the more cluttered our minds are. And, there's a whole lot of great Zen approaches to why it's better to live a downsized, simplified life. It's kind of been shown that the more simple and downsized and decluttered our life is, the better it is for our peace of mind, which brings us right back to our Enlightened World channel. And we're all trying to always find that peace of mind and that more Zen approach to life, where we're just a little happier and we're a little more peaceful. And sometimes decluttering your life is what it takes, is a big step toward getting there. I definitely can see that. Better neighborhood. Sometimes neighborhoods change, and you want to always find a better neighborhood for your kids to grow up in. So there's a lot of reasons, for that, why that works for some people. Your relationships can change. Oftentimes we move due to a divorce, or we move due to a marriage. So again, in both of those instances, look at the numbers, because numbers don't lie. They're pretty honest. You also can find that you have to move because you can't really afford your current home, or maybe you've been laid off and your income has changed. So that happens as well. A lot of times you're sitting on that equity. You're just sitting on that debt. I mean, it's not dead, it's going up, but at the same token, it's wrapped up in a building. It's not in your bank account. Does it make sense, if you're living in a $750,000 house, to just sit there and pay all those expenses involved with that $750,000 house? Or could you move to a state where you could get every bit as much of a house, and maybe even nicer of a house, for maybe $300,000 or $350,000, and you could bank or invest all of that leftover $350,000 or $400,000? So that's another decision to me that makes a tremendous amount of sense. Is it's simplifying your life, you're reducing your future expenses, you're taking that equity out of your house, and you now actually, it's now no longer just on paper. It's not now it's no longer just a paper number. It's an actual number it's sitting in your investments and sitting in your bank account, and can provide a ton of future retirement, security and stability to you and to your family. So all those things are things to consider when do it. Yeah, like I said, the markets, some markets just allow more money for a house, and some markets are buyers markets, some are sellers markets. Sometimes if you're moving from a seller's market, it makes sense to go to where it's a buyer's market, and you can negotiate better with that owner whose house you're trying to buy in your new location. Sometimes in buyer's markets, it's there's more wiggle room in those prices. You can end up saving more money in the long run as far as that goes. A lot of times your health is very important, because remember, if you are happier and you're breathing fresher air, you're able to get outdoors and do a lot of hiking, or maybe the beach is your thing. It's not mine. I'm more of a mountain and a hiking type of a person. That just invigorates me. When I see all that green around me, and I see those rolling hills and those mountains, and not a ton of exhaust fumes from cars and crowded beeping horns and all that kind of stuff, stresses me out. And I think decades of that takes a toll on people. I really do. I really firmly believe that. And I believe that making your life more peaceful, breathing fresher air, getting out there, and living in a climate, let's say, where being outside and exercising outside is a very real thing you can do. I personally find it hard to do outdoor activities in Florida the older I get. I mean, it's humid. It's very, very humid. And at the older you get, or that takes a toll on your body. It's harder and harder to be outside. So evaluate all of those things when considering staying in your current location or moving to a new location. Because I do think that the health, the overall peace of mind and the serenity and the lower stress should, under most circumstances, benefit anybody. I can't imagine that anybody's health benefits from a more hectic, stressful environment. So to me, looking at mountains, looking at trees, looking at country roads does it for me. That does it for me. It really does. That takes my stress level from up here to down here automatically. So that's something to consider. We all know healthcare costs are high, and we know it's not changing anytime soon. It's not. Let's face it. So that's something you also have to consider. Keeping yourself healthy is one of those preventative things that can keep those future healthcare costs a little bit lower. I think I alluded to that in another show. But healthcare costs, simplifying life, all of those things, putting yourself in a less stress environment, if whatever makes your soul sing, as far as what you have to look at every single day, is kind of a place that you should live. And that will without a doubt have positive effects, as long as you're overall relatively healthy and you also eat right and exercise and all those kinds of things. Breathing fresh air and getting outside and getting real sunshine a little bit at a time is never going to be a bad thing. Let's face it. We're not meant to sit in air conditioning all day long or sit in heat all day long inside of a house. So all of those things go into our overall well-being, and those would make sense. All of those different factors would make sense as far as basing a move. I also would say some people also enjoy moving into a fix-me-upper. I've known people like that. I'm a little bit like that. I'm getting a little bit less like that the older I get, because I don't want to have a constant house project on my hands. It's fun to do little cosmetic things. However, I would personally never move to a house that needed huge structural changes or that needed to be gutted in order for me to live at it. To live in it as I'm approaching 60 years old. I don't need that kind of headache looming over my head. So I just wanted to move on then a little bit here to say all of those reasons that we move, they are individual. However, they all come, like any other decision, they all come with positives and negatives. And all of those should be evaluated. You're still you. Realize this, that you're still you wherever you move. Okay, so if you are a very unhappy natured person, and you've always been an unhappily natured person, realize that just because you change your zip code does not mean that you're going to all of a sudden become a happy person. So there's a lot of factors that lend themselves to de-stressing your life, which can lend themselves to then making you happier. However, just changing your geography is not going to all of a sudden make you a happy person. If you are just an unhappy natured person, I would address those issues first, rather than thinking that the move, which could have a lot of negative effects, if you don't think it through or plan it out, it could actually make things worse for you. So think it all through, be honest with yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I making this move because I think this move will suddenly make me happy? Then that's the time to kind of take a step back and think about, maybe this isn't the right decision. Maybe I need to address me and not my house. So just be cognizant of that also. Statistics show that approximately 50% of people who leave their old home because it no longer suits their needs or their preferences. That was interesting. That was the number one reason. So a little bit more than 50% of people, that's the reason that they move. And that's a good reason. leading those statistics is because the current house is too small. So that tells me that the trend of downsizing later in life is actually smaller than the trend of families growing and then enhancing the size of their house because their family size is increasing. So I would have thought they were about neck and neck. They are kind of close, but the looking for the bigger house is actually the bigger reason, by quite a few points. Sometimes, you just move because you just need more space. And as families grow, you need more space. Sometimes you need more storage space. I can understand that as a reason, because if you're like on top of boxes because you can't find a space to put stuff away, or you have to rent a storage bin. Okay, another thing that I don't understand sometimes. Things are just things, unless they are, to have a storage space for your Cuisinart or to pay for that doesn't always make sense to me. This is just my opinion. Think about what you're putting in storage. I understand storage sometimes, and when it's transitory or temporary because you're in between moves or you're deciding where you're going to live and blah, 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 or you're in the process of, do I want to rent? Do I want to buy before I decide? That I understand that. But like long-term storage of things to me is like flushing money down the toilet. I'm sorry. I would think long and hard about what you put in storage. And if you really, really need those things. There's a lot of freedom in decluttering and purging. There really is a lot of freedom in that. And there's a lot of reasons that people hoard, contrarily. And another case where evaluate the decisions that you're making, how they're contributing to your bottom line of income and expenses. And is it worth it? At the end of the day, is it worth it? Is that extra bill worth it? They're all decisions to make. But whatever you do, weigh out the pros and the cons. Look at your current income. Also evaluate any changes to expenses in the new location, as I talked about. Life-changing moves should be both personal. It should fulfill your personal sense, and it should fulfill your financial sense. So don't make the move for, my recommendation would be don't make the move for one reason or the other, but make a move that satisfies as many boxes as possible. That's going to satisfy you on a personal level. That includes family, that includes I'm happy to be here, that includes climate, that includes all those types of things. And weigh those against the financial reasons for the move. So don't make a move for only one of those, is what I'm saying. So try and check as many boxes as possible, because the happier you are in your new location, usually the happier, those downstream effects of everything, of all the positive changes will have in your life. It should, you can, what are the things to look at specifically when it comes to a new house as far as expenses go? I would say that look at gas bills. What do you currently pay for gas and oil in your current house, and what will it be in your new house? Look at, is it a very cold climate where you're running that gas all the time, and now you're in a kind of a moderate climate and you don't have to run that gas as much? And how about the electric bill? Does the electric run less in the new location or more in the current location? And what is that going to pan out to? Like, take a typical 4 seasons into account. Don't just look at the cost of the bill or the cost of that commodity. Look at how it plays out in that new climate. How often are you running that air conditioner? Are you running it 20 hours? Does it run 20 hours a day in your new location? All of those things go into account in your when you're figuring out your expenses. The other important one is water bills. Water bills and sewage bills and trash collection bills, they vary greatly throughout the country. So does your new location warrant the increase or that you're going to get in that, as far as a place to live, an enjoyable place to live? So all of that comes into effect. car insurance rates. We all know when they do those risk level charts, these insurance companies that insure your vehicles, they look at different areas. Different areas have a higher propensity toward accidents. They are riskier places to drive. They just are. And therefore you pay more money for your car insurance. Sometimes that can come out to hundreds and hundreds of dollars more. So that's a very viable means to look at as far as are you going to, one of the expenses you could really save a lot of money on. The other one I did talk about already is home insurance and property taxes. Property taxes, surprisingly, can be high in any state, but can be also low in certain states. Some states have property tax laws that lock you in and protect you very much, and other states do not. And other states may have laws that you just get more house, but you're paying about the same in property taxes. However, you will find greater fluctuations in insurance, property and home insurance rates. Some places are just riskier to insure and are going to cost more money, and others are less expensive to insure because they're less risky as far as damage claims or the likelihood of damage claims. So look at all of those reasons when you are deciding where to live, I would say. And well, let's see, what else did I put down that I wanted to talk about? Some very important things. It also can depend on your age when you're moving. One of the things you want to look at is how do they tax Social Security in your new state? Because, and that of course refers to the state level income taxes. A lot of times states that have no state income tax, that's a desirable reason to move to a state, if the other expenses also are lower. Now to move to a state that has no state income tax, but all of your other expenses are exponentially higher, doesn't make so much sense. But one of the things I would say is, if your state has state income tax, what kind of bang for your buck are you getting from that state? Do you get more government-based type perks, for instance, from paying that state income tax? Are the roads in better condition? Are you less likely to, drive into a pothole that is 3 feet deep that'll completely wreck your car? That's a stupid example, but it's just I've done that. not in Florida, but there are states where they get bad winters where potholes can be an issue if they're not fixed. And so that's something to consider. So I would say, look at the state income taxes. Look if they have a state income tax. Do they tax your Social Security? And how does that new state tax all of your different types of income for the state income tax level? Of course, the federal income tax is the federal income tax. That's the same wherever you move because it's at the federal level. But state income taxes vary. So, and how and the whats of state income taxes do vary. So that's another very important consideration. I know people who have moved to states simply because they don't have a state income tax. And that's actually, it's a pretty smart move if other things also about the move make sense. So I would say also look at your income, look at your expenses. Is it going to change? And how is it taxed in that state versus your current state that you live in now? Do you have the potential to make less money, or do you have the potential to make more money, or are you retired? All of those things factor into swaying your decision to move maybe in a slightly different way. So I just wanted to check to make sure how we are on time here. We seem to be okay. Very good. So just look at the overall cost of living. Don't look at any one thing. Do that comparison, and look at places with when you're considering, look at places with lower medium income, because they often have a lower cost of living. I would say that's something to when you're thinking about that. There are some beautiful areas out there in America that have lower costs of living. Unfortunately, it can often be because there is a lower median income of people. But they're able to live as good of a life there than in other states where you'd have to make maybe 30 or 40 or $50,000 more a year. But their cost of living is so much cheaper. So now you're taking your currently locked in salary or currently, decent fixed income, maybe from interest and investments. And now you're moving from your higher cost of living place to that lower cost of living place. So that's a win-win for you because your income is your income, unless, your investments take a dive, which could always happen, of course. But barring all things, not changing and, figuring for most things remaining relatively stable and the same in your life, I would say that moving to a place with a lower cost of living makes sense on many, many, many levels. And some of the reasons and some of the things to consider, sometimes just making the money saved on the newer house just makes sense. The expenses of maintaining a house in some states or some towns or some cities is just cost prohibitive because, for one thing, people can charge more money in those places if it's a more affluent area. It's just the way the free market works. People will charge what they can charge. Doesn't make any sense necessarily. Doesn't necessarily mean it's more expensive for them to run their business in that area, but they can just charge more money because of the typical affluence in an area. And that happens all the time. So weigh all of this. Look also, I would say, the key things to consider are what's the cost of food going to be when we're talking cost of living now. Okay, what's the cost of food going to be in your new location? Some grocery stores are way cheaper in the country than other stores are. What's the cost of transportation? And I would even include, public transportation if you don't drive. Is that available? And what's the cost of that? What are you paying for it now? What does it cost for you to insure your vehicle in your current location? What will it cost there? So that's all transportation. Healthcare costs can vary. Sometimes less populated areas. The downside is you may not have the access to as many nearby medical facilities, but the overall cost could be cheaper of the medical facilities that you do have, and that's a consideration as you get older. You don't want to be many, many, many miles away from the nearest medical facility or urgent care center or hospital. So those are all things to consider. But by the same time, at the same token, you may not need to pay the prices. You may not need to live a quarter of a mile away from a hospital. Okay, because you might save, a lot of money and still only be a mile away or 3 miles away. Most, that wouldn't, to me, make an enormous difference as far as being close. I would consider close for me is like, is it a 5 to 10 minute drive? Okay, that would be close enough for me to the nearest medical facility or doctor. The other thing is home maintenance costs. Contractors and their prices and can vary a lot state to state. I would say look at all of that, consider all of that as part of your move. Consider the main part of that, considering that maintenance is, are you buying a fix-me-upper? Are you buying a house that has a lot of upgrades? Are you a person, or does your new house just need cosmetic work? Because that's a different scenario. That's not the same scenario as, oh, I must fix X, Y, and Z to move into this house because the roof is incredibly old. It looks like the foundation's not stable. Those huge things, those are big things to consider, maybe even, with buying a house and the feasibility of buying that house, and does it make sense, versus, oh, the walls are red and I don't like the color red. That's not a big, huge reason to not buy a house. Everything else about the house might be wonderful, but 2 buckets of $30 paint will solve your problem. So be smart about those moves and be smart about what you're leaving and what you're getting. Because when it comes to home maintenance, unless you just have money to burn and you really enjoy gutting a house and making it your own, then go for it. But if you are conscious of your money because you need to be conscious of your money, then look at what you're getting and look at the age of the house. And nothing against old houses, because old houses are huge in our country. There's a lot of people who love old houses. I'm one of them. But they do need maintenance. Anything needs maintenance over time. Old cars need maintenance. Old bodies need maintenance. Everything, as it gets older, needs maintenance. So an old house is wonderful, but how has it been maintained? And are the big things structurally sound? We're not talking about I don't like white kitchens. We're not talking about I don't like dark kitchens. That's all the kind of stuff. That's your personal preference. That's not a reason to cross it off the list. Okay. Of course, it could be the reason your personal preferences, if you don't want to change anything in the house, if that's your long-term plan, then yeah, if you can't even picture yourself painting a wall, you might have a longer time till you find that perfect house then. But I would say, usually you have to cosmetically change most things. It's kind of almost like an understood when you go to buy a house that you're going to cosmetically want to change certain things. Not every single thing in that house is going to be your liking. That's kind of a given. That the person's taste is not going to be 100% your own. So realizing that turnkey houses mean functionally that house has a working kitchen, the foundation is good, the roof is in decent shape. You're not going to have buckets of water in your house your first week you move in. Those are reasons, the structurally sound reasons to move into a new home. They're fine. Cosmetic preferences do not bar you from moving into a house as long as you can live with the previous owner's taste or whatever. So what I'm saying is, the bottom line of what I'm saying here is, consider big, huge structural changes as being slightly more important than your cosmetic preferences. So that's all I would say. It also, along those same lines, there's a difference when making a move between I have many more years to work, and I don't plan on retiring until I'm 70 because I love what I do. And I'm only 40 now. I could, and I could make X amount more dollars. I'm anticipating that. I have a great relationship with the company I work with. They've almost guaranteed me that I'm going to continue to do this meteoric rise up for the rest of my career. That's a different scenario than I am 63 or I'm 66. And I'm either very close to being retired, or I am retired, or I'm an early retiree. Those are very different scenarios, and they all need to be considered. So I would just say that look at your income, look at your expenses, look at your potential for future income, look at maybe investments that you have. Are you safely invested? Are you riskily invested? Anything that can change should be, you should think about those aspects and consider those before you make a move. All in all, the purpose of today's show was just to kind of show the financial and the well-being aspects that changing your geographic location, add to your life. And it should improve your life. It shouldn't be done for only one reason. And that was the whole point, I think, of today's show, is that I want everybody to realize that there's always going to be pluses and minuses of making any changes in your life. But evaluate all of those pluses and minuses, and do try to have more in the plus column. Without a doubt, you would definitely want as many pluses as possible, realizing full well that you're not going to get 100% of what you want. An area may have everything you want, except they get brutal winters. Okay, can I live with that? Maybe yes, maybe no. Would it financially make more sense to live with that? Probably, yes. So that was the only point of today's show is because we are mindfulness with the dollar signs with Mark Bianchi. The show does tie back to how you manage those expenses through your life and how you manage your income through your life and what your overall relationship is with your money. And realize you have more control than you probably give yourself credit for. Your life should never be that you're being dangled like a puppet by some other person or by some other entity. So with that said, I hope that you have enjoyed today's show. We went on a slightly different route than normal. Got all about those houses, but at least, you know, we weren't a home ec show today like a couple of shows ago. Although I thought that was kind of fun. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and thank you for joining us on Mindfulness with Mark Bianchi. I can be reached at I have a Facebook page called Mindful Money Matters LLC. That's my Facebook page name. Also, my email is financial.coach.mark@gmail.com. You can find it in the description on the Enlightened World posts and the Enlightened Living posts. It's in that description. All my contact information is listed there. I would love to talk to people as clients or give advice. I'm available for commenting, emails, whatever. If you want to comment, if you want to reach me, that's how to do it. So until our next show, remember we're on every 2 Wednesdays at noon. I thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I certainly did. And thank you for joining, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.